on with Joe Rogan this week, and he called attention to this, and here's him doing that in part in SOT 6.
I definitely think you have seen this very discreet, extremely well-funded campaign to try to derail the negotiation and try to derail the deal. And, you know, there's this Time article that came out yesterday. A friend sent it to me. It's like worth reading because it lists a bunch of people who have quite literally been paid by a former Trump campaign person who was himself paid by certain elements within the Israeli government. And those people are attacking me viciously for quite literally trying to accomplish the negotiation objective that the president set for the country. So
what is their position? Like, are they attacking you how?
Oh, it's social media posts. It's, you know, they're leaking to reporters. They're attacking me obsessively, saying that we should not be negotiating with Iran. We should just keep the military campaign going indefinitely. And that is their explicit position.
So this is a reference to this Time magazine piece, which focuses in on Brad Parscale.
At least in that clip, he seemed to be more outspoken. He's saying he's actually accusing Israel of wanting America to be in like a forever war. So I can kind of see where Ben Shapiro would not be happy with him saying that, because then he makes Israel look like they're the aggressors.
And the vice president goes on Joe Rogan, and he seems to cut against a lot of those things. So I've talked about the vice president's heterodox views, shall we say. The question is what he's doing politically speaking. Okay, because that brings us to question 2. I said earlier on, I want 2 things from my Republican candidate. 1, to reflect my principles. And 2, I want them to defeat the Democrats. Now, I've talked about the ways in which the vice president is skewing away from a lot of those principles, but the second question is still very live. Is he likely to beat the Democrats because of this? Maybe it's just a tactic.
Which is what JD was saying, right? That like, you know, like we've done already so much for you guys, like, and then why do you still keep expecting more?
About aid to Israel. Less than half the Democratic caucus voted to actually continue the aid. This is a sea change in American politics. People are seeing the apartheid in the occupied West Bank. They're seeing on their own phones, with their own eyes, the genocide that took place in Gaza. We now need to stop military sales to the Israeli government that they're using to kill civilians and kill Palestinians. We need also sanctions on the banks and on the government to stop the illegal settlements.
Wow. So 104 Democrats voted to zero out aid to Israel. That's crazy, guys. So it's pretty clear, like, but what's going to happen here, right? Like, I believe that the Republicans still have like more of like the pool. So I think Israel is going to continue to get their support. But I want to hear from you guys really down in the chat. Like, do you agree like with aid for Israel, or so are you with the Democrats here, or are you with the Republicans?
Say Zoran-backed anti-Israel candidates beat their establishment primary opponents. The Democrats are preparing for 2026 and more so for 2028. They're responding accordingly to what is popular within their party and unpopular. Similarly, J.D. Vance wants to be the nominee in 2028. Unlike Trump, who is term limited out of office and can't run next, J.D. Vance knows this is going to be his problem in 28. He's going to face the same problem as the establishment Democrats did in that primary. He's going to face the same problem that Trump faces right now, which is that the young people in his party and a growing number of people overall in his party don't like Israel. So he knows that if he wants to win some of these primaries, if he wants to be competitive in 28, and not just in the primary, but in the general, he is going to need to distinguish himself as not controlled by Israel, maybe willing to criticize Israel as America first, specifically in the context of this war. Because whereas before, maybe there was a general growing Israel critical sentiment, now there is a lightning rod for criticism of Israel, and that's the war in Iran. Now it has become discrete. It's become tangible. It's costing us something. America's obsession with Israel, its preoccupation with Israel, its occupation by Israel has now brought us into another forever war that's causing gas prices to go up, causing inflation to tick up. It's going to cost us maybe upwards of hundreds of billions, maybe $1 trillion. So now this is becoming an unignorable issue. Can't circumvent it. So Vance needs to position himself ahead of 2028 as someone that is not going along with this. That's why I said a couple of days ago, he has an Iran war problem.
DJT has nothing else to lose, right? So he's all in. But I think you can see JD Vance kind of holding back a little bit.
It's Israel first. He's backing the administration that brought us to war in Iran, and he's going to have to defend this war as part of his record in 2028, even though it's deeply unpopular for many reasons. He's going to have to get creative and thread the needle. He's going to have to at once own up to his involvement in the policy while also distancing himself from being responsible for it. And I said a couple of days ago, I said, what's going to be the mechanism? I said, Vance will say, my job as vice president is to support the policies of the president, which is what I did. And to the extent that I disagreed, I'm just trying to achieve the best outcome. I'm trying to make a peace deal. I'm doing my best to make diplomacy succeed. And so even though I was not in a position to betray or oppose the president's policy, I did my best to mitigate or ameliorate the damage. I said that a couple of days ago, and almost bar for bar, word for word, he said that on Joe Rogan. But the larger issue, the thematic issue, it's not specifically just about the war. Of course, it was also about Gaza, and it's about the foreign aid. And it's like Joe Rogan said, it's about the broader conversation about Israel's money in our politics, their control over our media, their influence over certain politicians. So Vance has this problem that at once, just like with the Iran war, there's another contradiction. At once, he needs to pander and appeal to this growing number of people, especially young people, that are anti-Israel. At the same time, he cannot completely alienate the Jewish right in America. It's only about 20% of American Jews are Republican. And they're all Republican because they're pro-Israel. They're Orthodox Jews or they're secular but pro-Israel. Not ultra-Orthodox, don't get it twisted. They're either religious Orthodox Jews having conservative values and supporting Israel. Some of them are secular Jews and they support
You know
Israel.
what?
Like
Why don't we just fact check it? Because I know that Nick is a knowledgeable guy, but perhaps he might not be completely correct here, right? Because that comes as news to me that 20% of Republicans support Israel. Let's check it out. Shall we? So let's see right here. We're going to do it live together. So how many percent of Republicans support Israel? All right, so I'm going to take myself off here and we're going to have a look at it. So, oh, look at that. So approximately 70% of Republicans express sympathy towards Israelis over Palestinians, and around 76% support continuing U.S. military aid to Israel. However, support within the GOP shows a stark generational divide, with a majority of Republicans under 50 viewing Israel. So with a majority of Republicans under 50, so it looks like the younger folks are viewing Israel unfavorably, and a significant portion preferring less U.S. involvement. Interesting. Now let's see. What about the Democrats? Let's check out. So what about the Democrats? So support for Israel among Democrats has significantly declined, with 80% of Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents holding an unfavorable view of Israel, while a baseline of 75% still supports Israel's foundational right to exist. So for me, I believe that Israel has a right to exist completely. Absolutely. I think every nation, including Iran, has a right to exist.